Good morning, everybody, and we are going live today with a very special fireside chat. We are going to talk to one of my good friends, Luis Esnaola, and Luis is one of the first violins of the Berlin Philharmonic, and he's a really good friend of mine, really fantastic musician, and I just want to say good morning to everybody for watching, and happy Tuesday. Okay, so let's see if we can find Luis, and let's see, he should be in our list of viewers. And let's see, Luis, are you with us? I'm just looking at the list of possible people who are in the Horn chat. And okay, hey, it's Frank Demler. Great to see you. Pablo Horn joined. Good to see you, Pablo. We're still waiting for Luis to join right now, and just make sure that he's got everything set up on his end. And I'll just... Okay, so sorry, we're back. We're just experiencing some technological difficulties. This is Luis's first fireside chat and his first live Instagram chat. So we're just waiting for Luis to join, and when Luis joins, then we'll have him join our chat. So Luis has been one of the violinists in the Berlin Philharmonic since 2016 for 4 years. And some of our questions that I would like to get to know about Luis are, how does he learn all those notes? The violins have about 20 times more notes than the horn players. And they're playing every piece almost every week. But Luis was also principal second in the Tonhalle in Zurich. And Luis studied in both Europe and in the United States. He studied at New England Conservatory in Boston. And one of my questions for him was, how is the music training in America similar or different to the training in Europe? So those are some of the questions I'd like to know. And, just some, differences in culture and differences in, the orchestras over there. So having lived it myself, I have my experiences, but it's also great to get to know from someone who is young and who's been in both places. So let's see if Luis is with us. All right. Aha, there he is. Luis.Esnaola. Unable to join for some reason. Huh. Okay. So maybe, Luis, is your privacy setting allowing you to join? I'm not sure if we need to make your profile public, but maybe go to the gearbox and let's see if we can get you to join. Or maybe Luis can request to join. Anyways, this is a great time for us to talk together and just kind of let you know what I'm up to. So, for me, getting that recital out of the way was really a gift. It was really great for me to get a chance to prepare for a live recital in my living room, and to have music to practice, to have music to memorize, have a goal to work for, and have people to share it with. For me, sharing music is what I love to do, and practicing is also something I love to do. So for me, the gift of sharing and the gift of learning doesn't stop just because I can't perform with an orchestra or in an orchestra or in public. For me, I'm always trying to learn, I'm always trying to grow, and that's one of my reasons for having these fireside chats, is to talk with other musicians who have similar and different experiences, and try to learn from them and try to showcase some of the things that really are, really special about their path and their journey. So we're going to see if we can't find Luis again. I know Luis is, for some reason, I'm just going to screenshot this here and send it to Luis. Okay. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties, everybody, but, we can have a nice chat with us today. So let's just have a conversation, and anyone that wants to write in questions for me, I'm happy to answer right now. And I'm happy to talk about my experiences through this whole Corona time of stay at home, just kind of some of the ups and downs, like some days, you know, when I was first going through this Corona break, I didn't really feel like practicing. And there are times where, you know, it's tough to like sit down and make myself do a warm up. It's like, you know, if you don't have a concert that night, what am I warming up for? And then I realized I warm up because I like to do it. It makes me feel like I have a routine, and it makes me feel like I have kind of a purpose, and some sort of like routine is good for me, because if I'm doing something the same every day, then it's kind of like that structure. It's just what I do, and then I feel like I'm in shape with my lips, and I feel like when I'm ready to you know, play a concert or practice new music, it's not a struggle for me to, you know, work on the instrument. It's just, you know, okay, I'm in shape. Now what do I want to play? And just choosing what to play. All right, so let's see if we can join Luis. Aha. All right. We have a few other. It's a hi, David. I'm Tim. Thanks for the lesson today. Of course. So we've got Luis in our room here, and we have Zach Bond. We have Luis Trompa. Hey, Luis. Let's see. Samuel, good to see you. MS State Horns. Okay. Let's see. What horn am I playing at the moment? Or what am I playing at the moment? That's a question from Gabby Osor. Okay, so at the moment, what am I working on? So we have all these transcriptions of really, let's see, Fede Messi. Let's see. Fede Messi looks like is possibly a horn player. So I'm not going to add you because I'm still waiting for Luis. So thank you for your request to join my video. I'm doing all these transcriptions of pop tunes, movie themes, and I'm doing them as duets. And it's a way for me to, number one, raise, Luis requested to be in the video. Aha! Oh, it live with Luis! Yay! We're waiting for Luis to join, but he's gonna, but I'm doing, you know, Super Mario Brothers, movie themes like The Hobbit. I'm doing, yeah, a lot of fun movie themes. So we'll talk more about that later. But hey man, it's so good to see you.
I made it.
You did, man. Hey, you know, it's you know, it's like perfect timing. It's just so
really?
good. Yeah, it's so good to see you.
In case it wasn't obvious, it's my first time with this thing, so it works apparently with the phone, right?
Yes.
But I was using it in the computer, and that's why it wasn't. I didn't know it didn't work with the computer, so.
Yay!
So
yeah.
wait, actually,
hey, I see that we're like you're listening to my live stream over there behind me. Is it still going on the computer?
I just put it away.
Okay. Put me away. Put me in the box. Oh man.
Just need one of you.
Yeah, okay. There's always two of me. I'm always moving that fast. So
good to see
man,
you.
tell me about like, how is life, man? What's life in Europe like right now? I mean, are you is everything shut down, or is everything kind of coming back?
It's no, it's slowly coming back. It's also Europe also is very different from one country to another, of course.
Yes.
I'm in Berlin right now, and Germany luckily hasn't been hit nearly as hard as southern European countries like Spain or Italy, anything like that. So
I'm not laughing. I'm just thinking like Germany is so good at following rules and protocol, you know, and some of these countries that like, I mean, I love to visit, like, you know, Italy and Spain. They might be a little bit more relaxed with like even some of the rules, such as like crossing the street, right? Like when you see like, a red sign at the crosswalk, Ordnung, you know, it's like we shouldn't cross this street. But you know, in Spain, it's kind of like, hey, there's no cars coming. Hey, let's cross the street. Or like Italy, hey, I cross the street, you don't hit me. Eh? Like,
that may have been a factor, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, you're asking how life is here. It's I guess like in most of the world, it's very, very calm in a way. It's just it's been like all of a sudden like life shut down completely for I think a big part of the world, and the businesses are starting to open with with a lot of restrictions, many measures to try to contain, of course, the virus, but slowly. I think for us in our field, it's going to take a bit longer, unfortunately.
Yeah. So what has happened with the Berlin Philharmonic? Like, how are they responding to, obviously they've probably shut the concert hall and they're not playing concerts, but
Right. So officially, I mean, definitely until end of July, no concerts with public are allowed in Germany, or at the very least in Berlin. So I sometimes confuse because some things are decided by the Länder and, you know, by
the state.
are equal to the states.
Yeah.
Anyways, in Berlin, for sure, nothing until the end of July with public.
Okay.
Luckily, we as an orchestra, we have this wonderful online platform, which is the digital concert hall.
Yeah.
So people in the orchestra have been working really hard to find ways to keep streaming some music in whatever form is possible, even with like fewer musicians. I didn't participate in that one, but on the 1st of May, there was a really nice concert with I think no more than 15 musicians were on stage, keeping the distances that are required and all of that. So I think that's a bit the model that we're trying to use until further notice, right? Until things can be a bit more.
I mean, I think Berlin is kind of really creative at finding ways to move with the times, and they're really fast at adapting. I mean, it's like one of the orchestras. I mean, it's the first orchestra I can think of that did like a live streaming model of their concerts. And then it was here, and then it felt like all the other orchestras were like, hey, this is the new reality. We got to catch up to that. And so maybe other orchestras will start doing more live broadcasts of musicians of about 15 or so.
Well, that'd be wonderful if it helps us an example so that others get ideas as well. And so I think, of course, we have this advantage that we have this great online platform, which makes it in these very uncertain times, at least to give that possibility to audiences for a way that it's nice that we were able to at least use it somewhat until things get a little bit hopefully more relaxed.
Yeah. Can you tell me, I mean, just a little bit about your journey to the Berlin Philharmonic? When did you start playing the violin?
Oh, the violin really, really early. I think I was like 3 when I started. But of course, at that age, you can imagine what playing the violin means,
like
right?
a little tiny violin, just
Yeah. I think it's a 16th violin that I started with.
Oh man.
Yeah. So maybe 5 minutes a day, if that, or so. But yeah. So that's how it started.
And you're from a family of musicians. I know your older sister. Tell her hello from me.
Of course I will.
Yeah, she was a violinist as well.
Yes, actually, I have 2 older sisters. I don't think you know my oldest sister.
No, I don't. Absolutely.
But they both started with the violin before me.
Wow.
So I kind of heard music in the family, and I heard them practice. And at some point, I got a little bit jealous. Yeah. So I also wanted to try that. My family, I don't come from a family of musicians, but my father was always a music lover.
Wow.
He never pursued that professionally, but he always, I think part of him would have liked to maybe, but it was. So I don't know. I think they just wanted us to have some kind of musical education, and that's how it got started.
Did you have like classical music on in the house when you were growing up, or did you have other types of music as well?
We have other types as well, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Not just classical. Yeah.
And you're from Madrid, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're a Real Madrid fan?
I am.
No. Okay. I love Barcelona just because of Messi, and I just think it's
okay. Nobody's perfect. I get that.
Yeah. I mean,
nobody as wonderful as you. Nobody's. It's okay.
Oh man. Well, Ronaldo's great, but I just, you gotta love to hate Ronaldo. And I like Real Madrid more now that Ronaldo's with Juventus. But
I don't blame you. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So, could you tell me about what it was like for you studying music? And like, I know you had time in the States. Like, you lived in Indiana for a minute.
No, I lived in Boston for 5 years.
Okay, I did you,
Yeah,
you did some camps in Indiana maybe when you were growing up,
one
or
one summer. Yeah, I was quite
at
young. Yeah,
IU maybe?
yeah,
Yeah.
Bloomington. Yeah, we did that one summer. That was great. And otherwise, like studies, like conservatory and such. I was 5 years in Boston in New England Conservatory.
Well, what was it like for you to come to the States as a youth, as a child? Like, and then did it kind of open up the possibilities? Like, hey, I could come here and study for college, or hey, this is what people are doing in another country. What did that expose you to?
Absolutely. I mean, first mainly through before moving to the States to study, I went to a couple of festivals in the summer and such, and of course that got me to meet a lot of musicians, a lot of great teachers, and to see an amazing level. Which at that age, when you go to school and you do your homework and you practice and you know in your daily routine, you're not always exposed to all this great level, no? And so it's really inspiring to see that in the summers. I think when
Yeah.
you're growing up. So I think that opened a bit the possibility of maybe if I had the chance to try going to conservatory in the US to and yeah to do my studies, and I met a couple of great teachers, and yeah, it was an exciting time for sure.
So, what was it like for you to study in Boston? I mean, Boston's kind of, I look at Boston as one of the chamber music capitals of the United States. I think that's where a lot of new music happens, and I think that's where, I mean, a ton of chamber music is happening. I just feel like the Bostonians are very well educated as a public, and they love seeing new music in the symphony as well. You know, it's like really progressive.
Absolutely. No, Boston is a great cultural city. Of course, I went there mainly for my teacher at the time, Donald Wallerstein, who's a wonderful teacher and musician.
That's Alicia's father, right?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and of course, the string department in New England Conservatory is wonderful. Also, very like they're all wonderful chamber musicians. Most of the Cleveland quartets of the original members, including my former teacher, are there. Um, so, Martha Katz is there, Paul Katz, uh, my teacher, Donna Wallerstein, and other great string teachers. So it was just a great environment to to be there. Yeah.
So you learned a lot of chamber music while you were there, and you probably also did a lot of solos, orchestral stuff. Did you, after Boston, did you end up like forming a chamber group and playing chamber music, or doing more chamber stuff? Because I know you've that's a big part of your career, is that other half of your playing chamber music.
Right. I always felt like throughout my studies, of course, I wanted to focus a lot on chamber music and soloistically I mean, just to improve as an individual, right?
Mhm.
To, I always thought to try to give me the most resources, whatever I may do in the future. So actually, I played a lot of piano trio when I was studying in the US. Um, and then and then I moved to Europe, and then I continued my studies. And at that moment, I didn't have a fixed group,
Mm.
but but chamber music was always very important for me. So even without having a fixed group, it was always really important for me to do a lot of it with as many musicians as I
What do
could.
you think chamber music adds to, you know, the solo, adds to the orchestral? What do you think that, I feel like if you're a chamber musician as well as orchestral and soloist, it kind of helps make you a complete musician. It helps, you know, really.
Absolutely. In a way, I think if in a strange way, I feel like if chamber music is done the way I think, the way I see it as the way my ideal is of chamber music, then you will also play solo great and chamber music great, I think.
Oh, wow.
Right? So because of course every part is a bit different, but as long as you understand the way parts relate to each other, it doesn't really matter in a way if you're playing orchestra, chamber music, or solo, as long as you get that. And by playing a lot of chamber music, you always develop a great flexibility.
Hmm.
So in a way, I don't think playing orchestra shouldn't feel that different to playing chamber music. Of
Wow.
course, when you're a violinist and you play in a section with many violinists,
Yeah.
you're not playing your own part, which is what usually happens in chamber music.
Hmm.
But as long as you understand your part in all of it, you should be equally flexible and adjust in a way and give.
Yeah.
Equally, you know? So that, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Like it's always adjusting, listening, and giving.
Right.
Right. It's like it's that combination, and I feel like with chamber music, it's a little bit more simple. It's a little bit more straightforward because there are less parts. You know where the bass is, you know where the harmony is, and you know who's got the melody, or you should, right? And it seems like you can kind of figure that out a little quicker. For me, when there's like a lot of sounds, a lot of different instruments, sometimes it takes me a little bit more study or a little bit more listening to really figure out, okay, which role? I mean, obviously, like I know when I'm the melody, I know when I'm the accompaniment, but who am I playing with? And like, okay, now where's the melody? It's like follow that instrument.
Of course, yeah. Absolutely.
So when you came back to Europe to study, could you tell me a little bit about maybe the differences in European, training, in musical training, and American musical training? Is there any, or are they kind of more or less the same?
I think they're different. Of course, it's. I guess one always has to be careful when you do a generalization, because
okay, for
you always run the danger of making a blanket statement that. But if I were to generalize, anyways, after giving that disclaimer, I would say I found a little bit more that in Europe, first comes the music, and then to find a way to do the technique to make the music happen.
Yeah.
And I've found in the States, in a way, it's a bit the other way around. Like there's a lot of really, really, really great technical players, because that's like what a lot of teaching is focused on since a very early age. So it's like a really, really great, solid technical playing. And then once you have that, then it goes more in the musical direction. So that's a feeling I had. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know if you ever felt that, at least as a string player. I don't know if.
Well, I remember for me as a young horn player, I went to the Prague competition in 2007, and I remember I'd never done a solo competition before, but I saw all these young players that were about my age, some younger, some older, but close to my age, and they had this unbelievable preparation and knowledge of the solo repertoire. And I remember thinking wow, okay, that's what I need to focus on. That's what I've been kind of missing in some of my studies, knowing all this this solo stuff, and just seeing these guys that were just wizards on the technique. And I was just okay, I got some work to do. And I came home and I felt like I put my head down and really worked on that solo repertoire. And I think the next year it was my goal. I was okay, now I'm going to try to record an album. So but it was seeing those other players in another country who'd had different training than me, and maybe different focuses, that really inspired me. And I was man, I gotta catch up. I want to be like them. So, and those are still some of my friends today. Those are they're in this orchestra, that orchestra. I've got one friend in Dresden. I have another friend in Barcelona in the opera, and it's another friend in Bamberg. And it's we're all, Paulo Mendes was a friend on the competition circuit.
Oh, amazing! Oh, I didn't know you guys went back.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, he's a good guy. So, I was going to ask you, when did you decide you wanted to make your career in Europe? And obviously, there are lots of jobs in Europe for orchestral playing, chamber playing, and there's lots of jobs in the States. And you had one, training in the States and training in Europe. And for me, that's the best of both worlds, because you get this, world view of music. It's not just localized. But how did you decide, okay, I think I want to live here? Was it?
Well, I didn't. I guess the first important decision that I made is when I was finishing my studies in the States. I felt like I had done all my studies at that point in the States. I was 24, I think. And part of me still wanted to study a little bit more with my teacher in Berlin. And so I didn't at that point really make the decision I want to live in Europe, but I I made the decision I want to study a bit more in Europe. And since I had the chance to study with her, and that ended up meaning I would also stay in Europe. So, but I didn't consciously make that decision so much. I made more like this studying more in Europe decision, right?
You just really like this teacher. How did you meet your teacher in Berlin? And remind me her name again.
Antje Vaitas is her name. Yeah, she's a wonderful teacher. She's also a wonderful chamber musician. And I met her a little bit by luck, also because I had played once for Christian Tetzlaff,
yeah,
who is very close to her. And I was studying in the US at that point, and he talked to me a lot about her, and he always thought it was a good idea if I studied with her.
Wow.
So I got to meet her indirectly through him, and then in the end I ended up really liking. I mean, I love studying with her. That was one of probably my biggest musical decisions I made. And then I loved living in Berlin, and then I had the chance to start studying in the academy as well.
Oh, how did
Berlin Phil?
Yeah, sorry, I had a phone call come in. So,
okay.
How did the academy come about?
Well, I was studying with my teacher in Berlin. I think I'd been studying with her about a year, and then I realized that I was getting old enough to let's put it in another way. I was getting too old to apply to the academy if I didn't take like my last chance to apply, right? Because I was at that 25, 26 or so.
Yeah.
So
27 is the cutoff.
I think now it's 27. I think before it was a bit earlier. Yeah, it's something like that.
27.
I think I started with 26, but anyways, it's somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So I asked her about it, and then I ended up doing both, studying with her and studying in the academy as well during this time. Yeah.
Okay. And so you were doing kind of both at the same time.
Right.
I mean, what did it feel like to play with the Berlin Philharmonic as an academist?
Well, that's great. It was like a whole new world open to. I was also, as I said, for me, chamber music had been very important, and until then, it was actually the first time I played with a professional orchestra, because until then,
that was your first professional orchestra you played with. This is the Berlin Philharmonic.
Actually, yes, because I've done a lot of course, school orchestras.
Yeah.
And then maybe in some summer festivals and things like that, but like actual professional, yes, actually. So it was great. It was wonderful. It was wonderful I remember in my first years, I was ultra prepared. It was like a Nielsen Symphony number 5, I think, very difficult.
Nielsen Symphony, yeah?
Yeah,
okay.
Number 5. I remember the last one is really tricky, really rhythmically also, everything. And I was like ultra prepared because of course I was like very nervous. It's like, oh, I have to be prepared. It's my first rehearsal. I'm the academist, the new academist. So, and no, it was great. It was also, it was a funny coincidence that the conductor of that program would end up being was the chief conductor, David Zinman, of what would be the orchestra where I would have my first job in Tonale. So that was in a way funny coincidence, no? Like,
yeah, that is. I mean, it's just like a random turn of events. Out of all the conductors you could have played first with, and out of all the conductors.
Yeah, he would be my boss just like 1 year later or 2 years later in my first job, really. So
how many professional auditions did you do before you won the Tonhalle?
Before Tonhalle, I had done one in Spain as a concertmaster audition.
Okay.
In the opera, it was I was also it was already during my academy period. It was a few months before the Zurich audition, and yeah, it was definitely a good experience for me. They ended up not taking anybody, but it was good for sure. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! And could you tell me about like what were your experiences like auditioning? I mean, so in the States, we have like you submit your resume.
Right.
They accept your resume based on what's on the lines, right? And then
Mhm.
you know, and then you get a time slot, and then you fly out, and then you go into like this giant warm-up room where there's like all the candidates, like maybe 30 candidates for that
Yeah.
day. And then you get called like, you know, 5 at a time to go out and go play. And usually you don't have to wait there like, you know, with everybody for like the whole day, but like sometimes you do. And then when you go out on stage, you get a room, like a warm-up room, like a private warm-up room, probably 10 minutes before the audition. And then you're 5 minutes before, you're kind of called to go backstage. You're in the on deck circle, and then like they have you walk on stage. There's a screen. You walk across carpet so they can't hear your, you know, your footsteps to tell if you have, you know, high heels or
Right.
shoes on. And then like you sit down there and you're just by yourself, and there's like one person that you can talk to. It's called a proctor, and you can just say, excuse me, could you ask a question? Do they, and then like the proctor comes over, right, and you say, do you want me to play, you know, this solo and this solo, or just this solo? And then they go, just that solo. Or they'll ask the committee if the candidate has a question, so you're not allowed to talk to the committee.
Right. So they don't know who you are.
Yep. And then you play, and you're just like sitting there like, I don't know what's behind the screen. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What's it like to play? Like, how is it different than that experience for you on in Europe?
Well, I haven't had so many experiences in auditions, but I mean, the one I did in Spain, it was also with curtain. I think the first two rounds. I think it was done like that because the first two rounds had members of the orchestra audition as well.
Okay.
I think it was done because of that. And then by the final, the remaining candidates, we played without a curtain. So
and was the audition mostly was it mostly excerpts, or was it mostly solo pieces, or a mix of both?
In that case, it was I think it was all solo until the finals. In the finals, they heard a couple solos. I think
a couple excerpts, or
yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay. So
I think. Yeah.
So in the States, it's absolutely the opposite. So we do like all excerpts for the first round, and then all excerpts for the second. Well, I'm sorry. We usually start with the exposition of a solo, and then we'll probably do anywhere between 5 and 7 excerpts, you know, for the preliminary round. The second round will be like exposition of maybe another concerto, and then they'll hear, you know, between 5 and, you know, 10 excerpts. And then for the final round, it might be another exposition of a concerto with a pianist, and then you'll do like another probably 5 to 10 excerpts. So it sounds like in Europe, it's just solo for the first round, solo for the same solo for the second round, maybe, or a different solo.
No, I mean, in that audition, I think it was a Mozart first round, then Romantic Concerto second, and then the third, I think it was like Concertmaster solos. I think for that audition.
Wow.
But as you may know, in Berlin Phil for strings, except for basses, I think we don't play excerpts at all. Actually.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
You didn't know that? Yeah.
No, I mean, look, I sat in through a couple auditions, and I think there was the timpani audition while I was there. There was the principal trumpet audition while I was there, and you know, I don't remember too many other auditions. Maybe I just was there for the final round, you know. So I can't recall any other auditions while I was in the orchestra. But I mean, I was there for a couple the horn academist audition.
Right.
So when I was in those auditions on the panel, like there wasn't a screen. You could just see everybody's face. You could see everybody's resume. You know, if someone wore like just kind of like a nice shirt, or if they were wearing, you know, jeans and a baggy sweater, you know, it's like, and that always amazes me, is like, you know, when people show up to auditions and they just wear jeans and a, you know, a sweatshirt, or like, you know, I guess it's comfortable, but for me, like, I always want to just dress up, because when I dress up, like, I feel nice, right?
I always dressed up for auditions as well. For me, it was more normal, but I guess that, yes, I don't know. It's not required, I guess. It's not however one feels comfortable.
Yeah. Well, for me, I feel like it's a sign of respect for the job. I feel like it's a sign of respect for the preparation I've done, and then also just like I want to show that I'm treating this really seriously. And by dressing up, and if it just means putting on a shirt, like, and that means that I've like, you know, a nice shirt and a suit, it means that like I've taken the effort to dress nicely.
Yeah.
That's going to be like a outward symbol of my inward preparation.
Mm.
So, yeah, I don't know. What did you learn? Were you able to watch any auditions while you were in the Berlin Philharmonic Academy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Academics are allowed to watch all the auditions. Once the playing is over, then they have to leave.
Out of there, gross.
Pretty much. They're not allowed to listen to the discussion among the members of the orchestra.
Yeah.
But up to that point, they yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely, that's very interesting to watch.
What I was going to ask you is like when you're watching the audition as an academist, and as an academist, I think you want to be part of the orchestra. That's kind of like one of your goals. You're like, someday I'd love to play with this orchestra full time. What did you learn by watching those auditions? Like what stood out to you as things to do and maybe things not to do?
It's a very good question. I just think it's really helpful to sit there at any time, but especially when you're an academist, when you're, as you said, when you're in a time of your life where you're probably either doing auditions or about to start doing auditions, to hear the candidates play one after another, all of them very good, and then for yourself see how each one comes across, and then everybody can get your conclusions, and then of course you end up also seeing who, if anybody gets the job, right? But I mean, just to sit there without participating in it, but just getting yourself out of the process, I think it's a really somehow it gives you a lot of information. I think you just learn from the process. You see what comes across well. You can sympathize with whatever can happen to anybody, saying, "Oh yeah, this is not so great," or "This I could see this happening to me. I have to watch out for that," or the other way around, saying, "Oh, this is a good way to, yes,
Yeah,
let's do an audition." I think there's a lot to be learned from that.
wow. I mean, what an experience for you. One of the things that kind of really struck me when I was listening to those auditions is what really speaks is like someone who's got a clear idea of what they want to say.
Absolutely.
And like how I just think like sometimes we value, or I'll put this on me, sometimes as a musician, I value technique, in time, in tune, which are all things that are really important. But when you really have something to say, you're really communicating, that's what reached me when I was watching these auditions. I'd say they have something to say, and they're communicating ideas through sound, and that really captured my attention. And I think I wasn't alone when that was something that captured my attention.
Absolutely, it's interesting to see how, not to say at all that the orchestra is ever unanimous or anything like that, but there's usually a big consensus in when something carries or doesn't carry with what you said, no, with like a strong musical idea or so. Doesn't mean that the orchestra always has one opinion. Nothing further from the truth, but there's people when something is really great, often it's there's usually not so much to talk about.
Yeah,
the orchestra.
Yeah, those are the one auditions where I put my pencil down. I'm not taking notes. Okay, this is on tune. This is I just want to listen.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just simple. You just want to listen.
Yeah.
So, would you talk a little bit about your journey after the academy? And you joined the Tone Hall immediately after graduating the academy? Or?
Yeah, actually, even a little bit before. I won the job during the academy, so I had to leave a little bit earlier to start the season in time in Zurich. And yeah, that was a great experience. Of course, it's a wonderful orchestra, the Tonhalle in Zurich.
You were principal second? Is that?
I was principal second.
Okay. So what were some of what was your role to lead the second violin section? Was there another second violinist as well? Who's another?
It was two of us with the same position. So it was two principal seconds. And sometimes we would play together, but not always. And no, it was just a great first job for me after coming from the academy to go to just a great orchestra and have a leadership position. I think it also helped me grow
You did
Yeah.
opera there as well? You did opera, you did symphonic, you did
No, the Tonale
Zurich?
doesn't do opera. There's because Zurich has its own opera,
Okay.
so they have their own orchestral, so it's symphonic.
Okay. Could you tell me a little bit about the cultural difference between Germany and Switzerland? Is that something you could talk about? I mean, I don't know. Like for us in America, we're just like, oh yeah, that's another place where they speak German, and I think it's probably like we think of it as being just like a neighboring state, because the culture from Michigan to Indiana or Michigan to Illinois is pretty much the same, and it's about the same geographic distance, but the culture seems like it's significantly different when you actually are in it.
It is definitely different. It's especially different. I would say the difference is more striking if you compare Zurich to Berlin.
Okay.
Than perhaps Zurich to Munich. Also, the distance, culturally, I think southern Germany with Switzerland, you could say they're a bit more similar, also different, of course, but between Berlin and Zurich, there's a real big difference in everything.
Like Lederhosen, no Lederhosen, right?
one of many differences.
Yeah.
No, I mean of course the Swiss people, they're incredibly polite, and from a starting point, always incredibly friendly and stuff like that. And Berliners are not known for their first impression, amazing politeness, so to speak. No, I mean Berliners are more
very direct.
Very direct, and so which is not to say they're not friendly, but they're like, some of them aren't friendly, but a lot of them are. They just don't make that effort that the Swiss would make to be extra friendly.
As a Midwesterner, we never say what we think. We're always like, oh yeah, sure, you betcha. And it's like, and when I heard people for the first time say like, this is what I want, this is what I mean, this is what I think, I was like, just like took the wind out of my in Berlin. It really took the wind out of my sail. But after a while, I realized it was really refreshing because you never had to guess. Where you stood with people, you never had to guess like what people were, kind of. Sarah Ferenc says "ope," that's a Michigan thing. Like, if you say "ope," it just means like, "Excuse me, I'm sorry." It's like all included.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. It's like
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it works like if you're like walking on a sidewalk and there's like a group of people walking and you want to get by them, or you accidentally meet somebody head on, you just go, "Oh, geez, sorry," and then like you don't even have to like say anything. You just like, everyone moves and like automatically like. And in Germany, like I'd be walking on the sidewalk and there'd be like a line of people walking down the sidewalk, and I'd go, "Oh," and like no one would move. They wouldn't flinch. I was like, "Oh, this isn't universal. It's only Michigan."
That's really funny.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So, could you tell me a little bit about your jump from the Tonhalle to Berlin Philharmonic, and what was that like?
Sure. Yes, I spent 4 seasons in Zurich, and it was really great. And part of me always thought I would try to audition for the Berlin Philharmonic, because if I had the chance, I would love to return there, so to speak. And so I did the audition, and I was incredibly happy just to return. It was in a way, it was like a feeling of coming back home, because I studied there and I already knew almost all of the colleagues, and so it was a very nice feeling.
Wow. And how did it feel to play with the Berlin Philharmonic after you won that audition? Like, I mean, so probably as a academist, you feel like, hey, I'm getting to play with this orchestra, but I'm not like a member. Like, you're kind of like, it's like being a substitute, but you're also a student at the same time.
Yeah.
And then when you joined the orchestra, what was the difference?
It was very different, of course. Very different, because as you said, I wasn't going there as an academist, as a student. I was going as a colleague. Of course, as a colleague on trial, because then, of course, you have the trial period, which is obviously a very big deal. But nevertheless, you're going there as a colleague, and it did help me to have that previous job, I think, in that other orchestra as a principal. I think that gave me also, just experience and confidence to you know,
Get through the trial.
get through the trial and just like feel like I was, you know, at the right place
Oh.
at the right time, and of course, yeah, and get through the trial. Sure.
What,
Yeah.
I mean, how did you manage the stress of being on trial? Because when I was on trial, I was just like, whew, I mean, it just seemed like week in, week out, everyone, you know, I was just under the spotlight. Every week was an audition. And
Yeah.
how did you balance that? Every day was an audition, really.
In a way, yeah. It's yeah, in a way it is. It's true. I don't know. Obviously, in a way I'm just like a very simple guy in a way. So I just for me it was like my goal. So I just said, look, however long this trial lasts, this is gonna be my main priority, and then I would focus definitely at least my time on my preparation for this. That would be like my first priority, and everything else I would make sure it would like somehow fit into my life, you know, into my schedule. But nothing would come at the, I mean, nothing, you know. I would try that as few things as possible would come at the expense of being well prepared for my job, and then that was like my part. And then once I did that, that gave me like a certain peace to go ahead, you know, and just do it somehow.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. You just, you know, just did first things first.
First things first, and then try not to think too much either, no? But just make sure that I felt good about what I was doing with my part, with my work, and with to be prepared.
Yeah.
And if, you know, yeah.
It's like you do the best you can, and you stay out of the results, right? You don't worry about the outcome, but you're like, if I'm happy with this, I'm pleased with my preparation, I'm pleased with my performance, then I've done all I can do.
Absolutely. I'm not going to say I wasn't worried about the outcome, because of course that would be a lie, but it definitely was the most important thing for me to feel like I was doing
Sorry, we lost you there for a second.
I got a call as well. Sorry about that.
No worries. So you were doing your part as much as you could, and to feel like, and that gave you peace.
Right.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you feel like you're showing them what is you, and you're giving it your best, then that's all. No, at the end, if that doesn't work, then maybe it's not meant to work either, and that's fine too. No, I mean that's
acceptance. Yeah. That's really beautiful. And you know, honestly, I look at the first violin parts to any symphony, and I just like, my eyes like go like cross-eyed, and I like look at all the ledger lines, and I'm like, how do you learn all those notes? And you have like so much repertoire and to learn. I mean, week in, week out. Obviously, you've played some of it before, you know, as an academist and as a student and with Tonhalla, but you played a second part as opposed to first part.
Yeah.
How do you approach a big work? You know, like or a lot of work. What do you do?
It's a good question. Like, the good news is that the more experience you have, as you said, and the more repertoire you have done, the easier it will come. Also, but you just get, I think you just get better at it. I mean, with experience. I think for me it sounds obvious, but for me the first most important thing is to listen to the piece and to get to know it first, no? And then if you get to know it, then depending on how much time you have, then you can prioritize and see what needs more work, where you want to invest your time to work on the part, right? But I think you get better at it with time.
Exactly. Knowing where the traps are, where the kind of pitfalls are, and then knowing, hey, this part I've done before, and you know, it might be technical, but it's not a problem for me.
Right.
So, yeah, where to spend your attention. Fantastic. Could you talk about what you did also to keep yourself kind of healthy and, like, you know, physically healthy, mentally healthy while you're under this amount of stress?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, for me, it's important to have time for myself, time for my friends, time for my family. At the end, that those are equally, you know, those are things that are also like you know, non-negotiable in a way, you know. And for me, those are like part of like that give me stability, and so that's also, those things for me are also like pillars, no, like just the people that are important for me, time for myself. mm, I think working out is really important. Doing some kind of exercise is great.
Just like walking, even it doesn't have to be like
Sorry.
It doesn't even have to be like a big exercise, you know. It could just be like going for a walk, you know. We don't have to be like marathon runners or like bodybuilders,
Yeah.
but you know, anything is good. Just movement, right? Some sort.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay.
Absolutely.
Could you tell me a little bit about some of the tours with the Berlin Philharmonic? Because I know that touring schedule that you go on 3 major tours a year, and they can be up to 3 weeks long. And sometimes they're like travel, play, and then you know you have a rehearsal before the concert. You play the concert, and then you go to your hotel. Next morning, you're on a bus to a train to like a plane, whatever, and you're just this travel, rehearse, play, travel, rehearse, play, and repeat. And it gets tiring. Like, how do you handle some of those physical strains on your body or your mind while you're traveling and still play at the top level?
Yeah. I love naps.
Dude, right? Me too.
You know, when honestly, sometimes even when you're tired, when you don't have much time, but even like a room service and like a nap, that can do wonders, no? And then you can play a concert like when you don't have much time, and then depending on how much energy you have, then you can see some of a city or not. But I'm talking about like the days where you don't have much time, then try to get sleep, eat well.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just sometimes there's not much more time than that. But
I remember I used to follow you around because I figured you knew where all the good restaurants were.
Is that so?
Yeah, I'd be like, this guy knows where the good food is. I'm gonna follow him around.
I see. Okay, I didn't know I had that reputation, but good. I'm flattered.
Yeah, you were my food guide, my foodie.
Good.
Yeah, I had a couple other questions here. I mean, basically, do you have any thoughts on let me just look at some of the questions I had written for you. Who are your favorite conductors and soloists in the Berlin Philharmonic?
Well, right now I have to say I'm really, really excited about our new chief conductor, Kirill Petrenko. I think he's such a wonderful and special musician that I find him really inspiring. So right now I would have to say him.
Yeah, he's really. I mean, I worked one program with him, and just the detail that he went into on each page, like the detail he went into why one piece connects to the other piece and what the value is and what the relationship is between the different pieces. Like it might be like the bass line connecting with like a harmony line or something in the texture, but it's also important, it's interwoven, and that relationship that I really found that he really brought up the details, but also those relationships between instruments and sections.
Absolutely. I find he has a great combination of just preparedness as far as like a musical idea and just musical concept and preparation, and of course obviously technique, that's not a question, and then like just like the passion and the taking the orchestra with him. I just find it, and he works wonderful, so I think it's a really complete.
There's that story from the second horn player, Andre Just, and he told me that he would, like in the poem of Ecstasy by Scriabin, he said that, like, I'm sorry, my dear friends, I'm sorry, but for this last chord, it must be so loud, and like, it was like, and he's like, not right now in rehearsal, but tonight we must play this chord as loud as we can for the effect of the piece, and like, I was like, okay, like,
that's so great. I didn't know that story.
Yeah, one of those moments where it's just like peeled the paint off the Philharmonic.
Yeah.
What are your favorite concert halls to play in the world? Like, which ones are your favorites? You've seen some of the best concert halls.
Let's see. I definitely like the Philharmonie in Berlin. Definitely.
Yeah.
I just love being there every time. The Suntory Hall in Tokyo, I think, is wonderful.
Everyone loves that one.
Yeah, wonderful. I remember the LA one, the Disney Hall. That's a wonderful hall as well.
Yes, so cool.
Right?
Yeah, it's absolutely. I love that hall. I mean, it's really live. You know, for the horn sound, it's just go. It's like amplifier, total amplifier.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
Carnegie, yeah.
Carnegie is great. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. What are your favorites?
Oh man, there's this. Look, obviously, the Philharmonic has one of the nicest acoustics for hearing the whole orchestra on stage. Like sitting in the hall, I feel like you hear the orchestra and the sounds are just so beautiful, and it's just inspiring to play in there because everything sounds amazing. Yeah. I really liked the hall in Lucerne, the KKL.
Oh yeah,
the cultural center in Lucerne. I thought that was a really good balance of clarity and warmth and precision. I think Carnegie, which I just played at for the first time in November, I think that's one of my favorite halls. Yeah. And then there's a tremendous hall in Southern Illinois at Bloomington. Really? Yeah. It's in Champaign-Urbana. And it's called the Krannert Center, and it reminded me of the Philharmonic, but the exception is for a horn player, what our acoustic depends on is having something behind us to reflect the sound off. Yeah. And in the Krannert Center, we have a little some wood panels behind the horns, where you can really get like a nice kind of reflection, and you can hear the horn sound in the audience. I feel like maybe a tiny bit better. Lastly, why is music so important to you? When you hear music, you obviously love it, and it changes how we feel. But what do you love about music, and why is it so important in a challenging time, especially as right now? Yeah, can you hear me? I just said, why is music so important, especially...
Sorry, I got interrupted.
Okay, no worries. I was just saying, when you hear music, it changes how we feel. And what about music is so important, especially in a time such as now? It's challenging for everybody.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Did you ask a question? I didn't hear you right now.
No worries. Yeah, I was just asking, why is music so important to you, especially right now?
Oh, well, I think music is a language, no? So the same way like language is important, music will always be important because it expresses also things that we cannot sometimes express with words. So that should never go away. I think it's inevitable. It has always been important, and I think it will always be important. I think it's just something that will always have to be there and is part of us.
Absolutely. No? Yeah. Absolutely.
David, I'm really, really, really sorry, but I have to go actually right now.
Perfect. Because, well, this is a perfect place to wrap up. And I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so great to see you.
It's so great to see you too, Luis. I miss you, man. And I look forward to having a really nice meal together when we see each other next.
Would love that. Hope
excellent. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you, David. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.